Russian invasion of Ukraine, and we've seen a lot more movements than from last week. We're finally a full month into this war, so we're about to see how far Russia has progressed from this week and since the beginning. Since going in the same order this way around, starting on Kiev, we haven't seen much movements as forces have been bogged down still in a siege of it. But in the area next to Kiev, towards the east, we've seen a lot of movements. There's been an encircling movement of Chernihiv, and all this area is now under Russian control as Russian forces have just mopped up these towns. Siege of Kiev, I don't really know. I know Russian forces there aren't nearly as well equipped as in some other areas. So I think it's yet to be seen how long that siege will go on for. We haven't seen much movement over here, but you're seeing these forces are continuing to move closer to each other, doing another encircling movement, but this time of Sumy. Now over here towards Kharkiv, not a ton of movement. We still, this force has gone this way, most likely connecting along with these forces, but no major movements towards the city of Kharkiv. Heading down here a little above the Donbass zone, we saw a lot more movement. Russian forces have really unified this area, and you're going to see these forces most likely move up and push up towards Kharkiv, or push down here and maybe meet up with forces from the south. Speaking on the south, we saw a lot of movement here. Russian forces haven't gone as much north as I predicted, and more east, reuniting with their forces in the Donbass zone. Yet still, surprisingly, the most surprising area is Mariupol is still there. In the past week, Mariupol was issued an ultimatum by the Russian forces, but Mariupol rejected this ultimatum. One of the main things that I saw with this is the Mariupol ultimatum wasn't that. It was much more of a empty threat, as though Russian forces have continued pummeling the city. You haven't seen any large, massive troop movements into the city as a result of Mariupol's rejection of this. So this most likely shows that Russian forces were really just hoping to psych them out, and you might see the city actually last another week, because I don't think Russian forces are nearly as moving towards it and really just setting in for massive shelling of the city and hoping just to make the city resolve end. Ukrainian forces have had one major counteroffensive, which is forces have pushed all the way down here. Russian forces 2 weeks ago have moved all the way up here, but since then have not made any more progress, as Ukrainian forces have pushed them much more south, closer to Kherson. This is showing that the relative security, though there has been a lot more territorial losses along here, security westward of Ukraine is largely unchanged from this last week to this week. So now it's time for predictions. Kiev, now it's way too early. Chernihiv, that's the one I see lasting 2 weeks maybe. Sieges have been going a lot slower. I think it's one of the things Russian forces have been less willing to commit massive troop movements towards troops that we saw in the early days of the war. They're trying to more shell enemies down. This is likely due to the donations and the effectiveness of javelin and other anti-tank weapons against the heavy armored divisions of Russian forces. Same thing here, though. I'd expect more concentrating fighting around Sumy once these forces reconnect with each other. From a Ukrainian perspective, you'll most likely see their forces not progress much this way, as there's the larger threat towards Kiev is coming up this way, so you'll probably see Ukrainian forces move up this way to help liberate that area. Over here, most likely defensive movements by the Ukrainians with less movements by the Russians. Russia will most likely just reconnect with these forces and bog down into a siege of Kharkiv, because they need this place to move further west. though you could see troop movements go down here. You're probably not going to see any movements along this area. From Dnipro to Kharkiv, you're not going to see many forces move past this area until at least one of these two cities is taken. I've been saying there's likely an attack on Zaporizhzhia soon, but I'm not sure. You're seeing a lot more Russian forces move this way, trying to connect up with this areas, largely probably trying to take all these little cities out here, trying to sandwich them in between the two forces. This force is going down this way, this force up here. Most likely going to see a lot of heavy fighting here, along with Donpar forces coming out that way. Over here, you're probably going to see the Russians try to counterattack the counterattack and try to progress back up here, most likely following the same route, though you could also see them follow this route. Though, as I've said before, a attack over this river area could prove very difficult for them, as bridges across it could easily be blown up, and that was one of the major problems Russian forces had up here. A bridge was blown up and they had to go around it, which led to Ukrainian forces ambushing Russian forces, leading to their withdrawal. So that is the state of war for the Russian invasion of Ukraine, week 4, and the end of month 1.